Halfway through the first ODI on India's tour of England, again it's been the Kuldeep Yadav show. Just what he did in the first T20 international that he played, before of course getting rested, shall we say. He came back again and starts it off and puts all predictions to shame. We of course did look at a total that was sensible as far as Trent Bridge was concerned, hard on the heels of the 480 plus. Well, it was not even anywhere close to that. Forget the predictions, we probably didn't consider Kuldeep Yadav. Let's see what our guests in the studio have to say. Joy Bhattacharjya, Zaheer Khan and our newest member, Gautam Bhimani. I'm going to come to you first. Let's forget the predictions. It was all about Kuldeep Yadav, but you reckon England also contributed to being about 50 runs short?
Absolutely. I think the most important thing was that there was no game plan against Kuldeep Yadav. Neither did they attack, neither did they defend. Had they attacked, they would have scored more runs. Had they defended, they wouldn't have got 6 wickets. So I think there was no clear game plan, and at the same time, they couldn't just pick him at all.
We talked so much about Merlin and all the lessons that they should have learned. Apparently, Merlin isn't working.
I think it worked in one game, and I think because Kuldeep didn't play that last T20 international, that just kind of helped England. I think that was the last game on this tour which Kuldeep was not going to be part of. I think he's taking a strong claim for the test spot as well. I think the way English batsmen are batting to him, they are not able to pick any of the deliveries. Joe Root, who we've been talking that he's someone who is good player of spin bowling, has looked clueless so far. So it's credit to Kuldeep, the way he's bowling right now, the kind of rhythm he is in, and the kind of drift he's getting. I think most of his dismissals are not because of the nature of the wicket. His dismissals have come because he's able to deceive the batsman in flight, and that's something which is really going to trouble England going forward in the series.
Almost a case of don't expose him too much. We briefly talked about that.
I was just tell to Zaheer, the only way Kuldeep can get dropped on this tour is if he win this one, the next ODI, and they keep him away for the third ODI and say that, look, we've already won it, keep him for the test matches. That's the only way I see him missing a match in this tour without injury. I mean, there's no question about it at all.
But I think, since we're on the subject of Kuldeep, why wait any longer to get in a little bit of an insight from these two gentlemen on Kuldeep Yadav getting picked? Because he's really the first time he was properly seen is in those wonderful purple colours.
Look, I think it's always a luxury for any captain to have a wrist spinner, and especially someone who can bowl with the left hand, because it's a rare commodity as well. If you see, there are not many going around in world cricket at the moment. There was Brad Hogg at one point of time. Now you've got Kuldeep and Shamsi. So it's a difficult skill and a different skill as well. Sometimes it's easier said than done when people say it's the same thing, that someone is bowling with the right hand and the other one is bowling with the left hand. But the important thing is that both the deliveries go a completely different way as well. For a right-hander, most of his delivery starts coming in, but if a right arm leggy is bowling, so his stock delivery is going away from the right hand batsman as well. So it's always good for someone like Virat to have two wrist spinners, one the right arm leggy and the other one is the Chinaman, because it's an attacking option.
Was there an interesting story to the way he was picked up?
I mean, just we had seen him on television, all of us, and we got the tapes on him on the he got a hat-trick against Scotland in the World Cup, if you remember, and that was the one that they had a heartbreaking win when they were finally lost, I think, in the finals. And that hat-trick was, there, and always Gautam has always been a huge believer in, good wrist spinners. Sarabjit Ladda's played for us, many have played for us. So the moment he saw, the one thing he wanted to know was, is he a quality spinner? Had a look himself and said, okay, this is the guy. And after we picked him, I mean, just...
Look, and the biggest quality that Kuldeep has at the moment, which no one talks about, is his accuracy as well. It's very difficult to be accurate as a wrist spinner, because if you see, most of the time it's a difficult art as well, and most of the time you end up bowling a lot of long hops as well, and sometimes you end up bowling too full as well. But if you see the entire 10 overs, he hardly bowled a bad ball except one that Willie pulled straight to mid wicket as well. But otherwise, if you see the entire 10 overs well, he's very, very accurate as well.
Isn't that what you do part-time as well?
I wish I was that good.
But you do?
Yeah, I do, but
that's your official art.
If I would have been that good, I would have still been playing for India.
There you go. Listen to that. Listen to that. That's how much he values, wrist spin. But the very fact that England simply couldn't pick him was evident from the fact that when Jason Roy came out and when he faced the first two deliveries, first from Chahal and then from Kuldeep, he just almost told himself that I need to do something different and jump out and step out and then play a reverse sweep.
Absolutely. It's like seeing that, when you see animals, when they run across the road and the headlights suddenly hit their eyes, they're like frozen, they can't move. And the English batsmen were like that. It just doesn't seem that Merlin machine around. Obviously, homework ठीक से नहीं किए थे.
Well, you generally see these kind of reactions when you're not sure of what is being bowled at you. When you're not sure, that's where you try to put pressure on the bowler, either by reacting early, so that you're just giving the bowler that hint that you're going to step out and hoping that the bowler is going to falter in his length. But if that doesn't work, you're always going to be in trouble. But the basic is, England batsmen are not looking sure of what is coming their way, and because they're not sure, they're not able to commit to playing a stroke either on the front foot or the back foot, and that's why the attacking option is not there for taking, because they themselves are not sure of what is coming at them. And the key, as Gautam will probably able to explain you better, key to play spin is to pick the length well. If you are able to pick the length, then only you will be able to play a spin well, and you got to be able to play as late as possible, which someone like Gautam always used to do.
Look, I think another thing is, if you really want to play spin well, you got to pick it from the hand as well. That's the first clue which a batter gets. The moment you don't pick a wrist spinner from the hand, you will always be late, because picking something off the surface, you will not have enough time to attack. You might have time to defend, but you will never have an attacking option as well. So to pick up, to play wrist spinners really well, the first option is to look at the wrist, which is very important, which I think English batters are not doing that well, because they're trying to pick the spinners off the wicket. And the moment you start picking the spinner off the wicket, you're always hoping against hope that you might end up picking the right ball, and you might end up just defending it or rather than attacking. So what Zach said, that they don't have enough attacking options, the reason is because they can't pick the ball from the hand.
But picking up from what you said, if it's possible to defend even off the pitch, could they not have told themselves, look, let's try and play him out and attack at the other end? They weren't even doing that. They wanted to attack him from the word go.
Look, it's a double-edged sword as well. If you keep thinking that I'm going to play out a particular bowler, and that also in a one-day game which has 10 overs. So obviously 10 overs is a lot of overs in a one-day game. Rather than just thinking that I'm going to just play him out, just try and be positive, because today also they went into their shell and went nowhere. Had they been defensive, as I just mentioned, then they shouldn't have given Kuldeep 6 wickets as well. It is always better to go the attacking way rather than going the defensive way as well. I would have been happy had they got 60 of Kuldeep and given him 6 wickets rather than giving just 25 and 6 for 25. Had it been 6 for 60, they could have got 300.
Or the other option was, if he does go for 25-30, it should be 1 for 25.
Look,
if at all.
Look, the thing is, you got to put pressure on the bowler. You have to put pressure on the bowler. That's what one-day cricket tells you to do. That's what one-day cricket expects you to do as well as a batter. Unless and until you don't put pressure on the bowler, he will never be able. He would not be bowling a loose delivery. You got to be able to put pressure, irrespective of whether you pick him from the hand or you don't pick him from the hand. The mindset needs to be positive as well. Even if you don't pick someone from the hand, your mindset still needs to be to look to score runs rather than just looking to defend. The moment you go in that defensive mindset, I think you've completely given up.
Gautam, you're asking a defensive option from Gautam Gambhir.
But
probably the best player of Indian spin ever.
I'm trying to ask him to be in English shoes.
And
I think the difficult part for England team to deal with is there are 20 overs of wrist spin. I think if you had only one bowler to deal with, then you can take that defensive option. But when you have 20 overs to deal, you defense is not an option. You have to find a way of scoring runs. You might not score at the rate of 6 runs per over, but you'll have to find a way of scoring at 3.5 to 4 runs at least. Because then you're always in the game. Otherwise, the story will be the same. You'll get off to a good start, then you'll lose wicket in the middle phase, and then you will fall short by 30 to 50 runs, and that is never going to help your bowling unit. So your bowling unit needs to have that par score to deal with and create that kind of pressure. And it's actually when you're playing against India, you know that batting is India's strength, but bowlers have been consistently doing well and creating that scenario which is making it easy for batsmen to chase down the totals which are under par.
Just want to quickly get these numbers out, since we talked about spin. 84 for 7 in 23 overs, because we of course had Ryan up chipping in with 3 overs, and if you take pace, it's 184 for 2 in the remaining 27
And
overs,
they
which
didn't
is
do badly
not bad at all.
And they didn't do badly at all. No, the other interesting thing is right in the middle of that, if you look at the analysis of the batting, there's a 12 over 73 ball spell in which they didn't hit a boundary. 73 balls, 12 overs, not a single boundary hit.
And another thing, the only game when they played Kuldeep really well was when they attacked him in Cardiff, where they got 35 or 36 of his 4 overs, and everyone thought that they've been able to handle Kuldeep really well. And the only way they could do it was because they were attacking in their mindset as well, because they were positive in their mindset as well. Had they done that today as well with 5 fielders inside, they did that to Kuldeep in Cardiff and there was only 4 fielders inside. They could have done that even in this game as well. Had they done that, I'm sure they would have got at least 300, 320, but they suddenly went the other way, thinking that we could just defend him and try and just knock him around. But what happened was that they were all over the place against him. Yeah. Every ball I thought that he would get a wicket, every ball. So it shows that the entire batting unit have gone into their shell completely. Not even one guy was willing to take him on. Jason Roy, I would not back him to, he's got the strength to hit the ball straight down the ground. He could hit 6s at will. What is the point of just reversing someone when you're not picking someone? And it was just thinking that I'm just going to get this out of my system, because had I been positive, I would have gone straight on the ground. That would have been a positive approach rather than just going the reverse slap.
One was Jason Roy. The one I personally found most bizarre, we were giving him so much credit, was Ben Stokes. Let's quickly update you with those figures. He has only played 100 balls in ODIs on 2 occasions. Both times, he scored a century. This was the 3rd time in his career he played 100 balls and all he scored was 50 runs. His slowest innings by far ever, and it was actually a good innings under the circumstances with everybody at the other end going berserk. But when he gets to 50, there's 5 overs to go with 1 from Kuldeep. His first ball, he goes for another reverse sweep. That probably cost them, given that the fact that they've got to 268, with Ben Stokes in at the end and Adil Rashid to help out, they could have got 290.
See, I think the basic plan of England batters are very simple. You know, when you are in doubt or you want to accelerate, play the sweep shot. You know, it can be reverse sweep or the
one way or the other
sweep. They're just going to go for that. You've seen from most of their batters, even when they played well against Kuldeep, their get out of jail shot was a slog sweep or a sweep shot. So that's something, you know, which has been planned. Ben Stokes is naturally attacking aggressive player, and for him to take the game to that stage, you know, that was the right kind of approach, you know, to be attacking, because he's someone who has been batting in the middle for a while. So, you know, he had to take that chance at that stage. Didn't work, but I think, you know, the stories so far of England is, you know, they got to 268 with just 2 partnerships. I think, you know, in their batting meetings, they need to figure out a way of building these small partnerships, and that will get them to par score. Because at the moment, if they continue with this kind of approach, if they don't find the answers to what's been asked of them, you know, the story of this series will be pretty much same, and India will be able to dominate England right throughout the series.
Did this disease start in the 87 semi-final when Graham Gooch
started
sweeping? Yeah, there, of course, it worked.
Yeah.
He cleaned the Wankhede Stadium and, of course, got England to the final.
Yeah, I have a theory that there's a batsman who used to play in this Nottingham pitch called Tim Robinson, who used to make Jeffrey Boycott look fast.
Who was, by the way, the umpire on the field today.
The umpire on the field today. So, uska bhatakta hua Atma had got into Ben Stokes, because the way he was batting was certainly not the Ben Stokes we know. Suddenly, he sort of woke up and said, "Arey, mujhe to shot marna hai." But really, that's what I'm saying, that very different innings, but if you have done all the hard work of controlling yourself for so many overs, why on God's earth do you want to throw it away in the last minute? I mean, that's a strange one.
Absolutely. But it's been the story of both Chahal and Kuldeep Yadav, and they have been super dominant. Ever since they started things, and we're not just talking through our hat, have a look at these numbers. Oh, I like it. I like it. This took me by surprise. Look at that. That's something you 3 would enjoy. The Kul Cha effect. Brilliant. We're going to stick to this one now. And have a look at this, 11 to 40. We're talking about that key phase in the middle overs. And these, I think, are dominant figures.
Absolutely. I think, and this showed that how dominant the wrist spin is during this time, especially with 5 fielders inside and 2 new balls as well. So every captain would want to have that luxury of having 2 wrist spinners, because I think the finger spinners have just gone completely out of the game. Either it's become a defensive finger spinner has become a defensive option, or you just can't make them bowl 10 overs with 5 fielders inside. So I think wrist spinner is the way to go forward, and I think most of the teams have just realized that. So that's what I think is the way forward, and India is very lucky and very fortunate to have two guys who are pretty accurate. Okay, there will be a lot of wrist spinners in the country, but being that accurate, especially with the 5 fielders inside, is something which India should be very happy with.
India lucky, but I reckon it's a trend worldwide to have wrist spinners and to do well. And just to prove that, looking at the top 5 wicket takers, have a look at this. This is in the middle overs, in overs 11 to 40 worldwide. The top wicket takers since 2017, and all 5 are wrist spinners. And that's not a coincidence.
No, not at all. In fact, Kuldeep would be higher if he would played a few. He missed a few matches in the beginning, so he's otherwise he would have caught up with Chahal. You know, I think Chahal has about 4 or 5 matches on him. But yeah, it's an absolutely dominant statistic, and tells you the way the world game is going, as Gautam is saying.
Where do you? I mean, what do you think? You know, given the fact that batsmen are aware of this, you know, it's not like it's a mystery art. We've had in between a few mystery bowlers who don't necessarily have to be wrist spinners. We've got someone like Sunil Narayan. We've talked about him a lot. They had Ajantha Mendis briefly from Sri Lanka. So it's not necessarily always a mystery art, as Gautam mentioned earlier. It's something that you can actually read out of the hand, and yet they're taking so many wickets.
Yeah, but what you mentioned right now, you know, you got to read it out of the hand, and the batsmen are not able to do that. And that having 5 fielders now inside the ring, if you have a quality spinner, that makes it hard to take singles. Then that puts pressure on the batsman to play the big shot. And if you're not picking the ball from the hand to play that big shot, you're never going to be sure. And that is what somehow these numbers are also suggesting, that, you know, batsmen are not able to pick the leg spinners or the wrist spinners from the hand, but because of the 5 fielders inside, the pressure is mounting, and when the pressure is mounting, they are succumbing to that pressure and throwing away their wickets.
But of course, you have to have some quality. We know we've got a wrist spinner at the other end, Adil Rashid, but I reckon the Indians are a little bit more adept to that. And of course, Rashid's probably not quite the quality of a Kuldeep in that sense.
Yeah, more accurate. I think it's very important to be accurate. If you see that unless and until you're not accurate with 5 fielders inside, you would be going for a lot of runs, because for first 40 overs you got to have 5 fielders inside. So it's a difficult art to actually. It's very difficult to be really accurate. So I think the most important thing is that Kuldeep and Chahal is very accurate. But the biggest challenge for both of them will be once they start playing Test cricket, because if you see what Rashid Khan is in T20 and one-day cricket is to what he was against India in Bangalore. Because the thing is, once you start playing consistently in all the 3 forms of the game, what happens is then people start picking you better, because the more they play, the more the opposition will start picking them as well. Because Kuldeep and Chahal doesn't play Test cricket, so obviously they only play the shorter format of the game, so it's difficult for any opponent to pick them. And once Kuldeep starts playing consistently in Test cricket, what happens is then people will start playing against him for the entire day or for a longer duration, and then it becomes easy as well. So the biggest challenge for Kuldeep will be how he does in Test cricket, and then from there on, how does he do in one-day cricket as well.
Automatic choice though for this Test series, perhaps again used in smaller doses.
Absolutely, but you know, the other thing you're talking about, Adil Rashid right now in the ICC rankings is England's highest ranked bowler. He's number 8. Number 13 is Moeen Ali. So of the 5 bowlers that they're playing today, those are the 2 top ranked bowlers. And that's also shows you that Adil Rashid is also that whole thing of leggies. Maybe we Indians play him maybe a bit better than other countries would. But he's still a good bowler.
Is that as much a reflection on Adil Rashid and Moeen Ali, or the fact that the others, they just don't have a backup in terms of the pace bowling at the moment? Good enough to be.
It's a combination. I think, you know, it's also to do with the format. It's also to do with the 2 new balls have been used at both the ends. The wickets are getting flatter. With this new fielding restriction rule, you know, just kind of the bowling becomes a bit predictable as well. You know, because as bowlers, you don't have many options. You know, you're relying too much on the variation and hoping that the batsman makes mistake. Those are the things, you know, not really going bowlers' way, especially the fast bowlers.
But since you mentioned fast bowlers, and we've got you captive in the chair, nice looking, very dapper in your jacket, you wouldn't be queuing up to be bowling right now in 50-over cricket, would you?
Well, it depends.
See, my question,
if you ask me what I will be bowling, then yeah, I think, you know, it's also, at times gets boring as well. You know, when I keep saying that, you know, you have to keep it simple, you know, stick to the basics. But that's what the need of the hour is. I think, you know, you got to play the game, not the format. You know, at times
That's another quote for you.
You got to play the game, not the format.
You've got 2 today that you need to keep.
Yes.
Yeah.
We keep everything, don't worry. We're not missing anything.
Flowing smoothly.
Absolutely. That's why the only reason why I can keep boasting about my little football prediction is because somehow someone keeps it somewhere and I can keep it to show the grandkids. But in terms of the fast bowlers, you know, we did mention the 480 and it is sort of a reflection of the times that scores have gone over the top. And while we've talked about the good part of it, the spinners, the wrist spinners coming into play, scores have changed in recent times.
And see, here's my point. One of the greatest, Joel Garner was one of the greatest fast bowlers of all time. You have a look at him, he's a great fast bowler. But his economy rate was 3, which in today's day and age, if Joel Garner had bowled, his economy rate would have been maybe 5.5, maybe 6, maybe 6.5. It would not have been 3. The game has changed and it's gone the way of the batsman. It's like comparing, you know, Valery Borzov's run today in the 72 Olympics to what Usain Bolt runs today. The game has changed. Unfortunately, it's moved towards this thing. So again, a par, 10 overs 62 is par today. 10 overs 60 for 2 was a horrible bowling performance in say 1985. So if he's saying that he wants to bowl today, if he restricted a batsman to 55 or 40, he'd feel very good about himself because the game has changed, you know.
So you have to find a way of what really works for you. You know, you got to understand as a bowler that what is your strength, and you got to have plan accordingly. What is happening, I see these days is you are just kind of going by the format. So you will have, like, you know, you got to have a fine leg up, for example, or a third man up. No, you don't have to. You know, you got to have a plan in terms of what is your strength. On a particular day, if the ball is swinging, if the ball is behaving in a certain manner, or the wicket is assisting you in a certain way, you got to figure out a way. What is your best option? What are your fields on those kind of conditions on that particular day? In the game time, what is happening is, like, you know, you go back and then you analyze that, okay, I could have done this. I had this kind of help from the wicket. I was better off not having a third man or a fine leg. You know the rules. You got to have 5 fielders in the ring. You have option of having 4 fielders outside. So you got to know your areas where you're keeping those fielders, and you know, just bowl to your strength. When you have a mid-off up, you cannot bowl a slower one. You know, then you got to be as fast as possible. Use your bounce and make it that much harder for batsmen to hit you over mid-off. And if he still managing to hit you over mid-off, then accept that fact. But when you have mid-off up and you're bowling that slow one and giving that freebie to the batsman, that is something which is not acceptable, and that's just happening because of pressure and because you're trying to play the format that you have to use that variation. You don't have to always use the variation.
But conditions are changing and not seeing the kind of swing. We've got the 2 new balls, so perhaps that's also contributing to it. Let's have a look at these numbers. Since April 2015 in ODIs, have a look at the number of 300 plus scores, and many of them, I can tell you, were well in excess of 350 as well. One, of course, we know in excess of 450. So this is something you wouldn't even have imagined a few years ago.
Couldn't have imagined these scores in England, Australia and South Africa.
Exactly.
I could have imagined this in India and in subcontinent with 2 new balls on flatter wickets, but I could have never imagined with 2 new balls, especially in a place like Australia and South Africa. England, okay, because of the summer, sometimes people say that it gets really hot there, but if you traditionally see, when we talk about Australia, we talk about bounce, we talk about South Africa, we talk about bounce and seam movement. But if you see the amount of scores, 300 scores, it's absolutely astonishing, because the 2 new balls were introduced only to, I think, bridge the gap between bat and ball, but it's completely gone the other way. With 5 fielders inside, 2 new balls, if you can, I remember the last World Cup which was played in Australia, I think the amount of 200s and 100s that was scored was never scored in any other World Cup. So imagine if you can score 300 plus run on bigger grounds as well. Australia are not small grounds. If you see Brisbane, Perth, Melbourne, Sydney, those are bigger grounds and huge grounds as compared to English grounds. So I think it's a little unfortunate, because I feel sometimes for the bowlers, and I feel that the way cricket is going, I don't think so a lot of young kids would want to become bowlers, especially in the shorter form of the game, because a young kid would never want, that's the fact, a young kid would not want to see a 481 or a 350 scored every time, and bowlers getting thrashed. Someone like Andrew Tye giving 100 in 9 overs, which is very, very unfortunate. So I feel that there has to be an even contest between bat and ball.
So what's the solution then? Someone comes to you and says, Zaheer uncle, if I permit him, a very young kid, a very young kid.
Unless and until you've got the ability what Zaheer Khan had. If you don't have the ability what Zaheer had, I don't think so you can survive.
But what would you tell a youngster today? Fast bowler, I mean, maybe some youngsters would want to become spinners to emulate Kuldeep. But if a youngster wants to be a fast bowler, and as Gautam said, you see a 481 happening, do you still encourage them? What do you tell them to do?
I think it's very important to have that mindset, that mindset and that aggression is the key to deal with these kind of situations. When you're out there on the field, you got to have that instinct to bowl as fast as possible, analyze the game and stick to your strength. That's for a fast bowler. And if you're talking about a young fast bowler, so I'll tell you that Dadaji, aap unko boliye.
Well played, Zaheer. Well played. He hit that off the back foot for 6.
When you're a kid, just try and bowl as fast as possible.
Where did that come from, Dadaji?
अब आप बोलोगे अंकल वो छोड़ेंगे ज़हीर जी, आपको तो बाउंसर फेस करना ही पड़ेगा.
I thought he was looking at you.
So I'm per Dadaji, I'm one step ahead.
Oh, I tried to get out of that one. I fell right into the trap. But let's come to the run chase. I know we've talked about that. We were expecting a few more runs for India, a little bit more of a challenge. But nonetheless, it still runs on the board. But we know that India have an excellent record chasing, especially under this young man, Mr. Kohli.
Absolutely. And I don't think they'll change game plans. They'll play the same way. They'll play it the way they played a 300, 320 target, because I think our opening batsmen do go for it when the field restrictions are in. I think they'll play their normal game and go for it. I don't think they're going to make any changes, because it's still a fairly respectable score. It may not be a pass score, but it's not a 180 either.
Again, in terms of the approach, if you're sitting in the dressing room and you see different scores, a 210 versus a 260 versus a 320, do you still tell anyone anything, or do you say, look, you've done it before, just go out and do it as we've always done it?
Look, it's those in between scores as well. If you see 260, 270 are those totals where actually you don't know how to go about the total as well. If given an option, you would still want to go the positive way rather than thinking what the total is. You just go out there and play the way you want to play and try and be as positive as you can, because sometimes what happens is the moment you start going into a shell and suddenly you lose 2 or 3 wickets, you feel that, oh, where are we going from now on? So I think be positive irrespective of you're chasing 350, 150 or 280. So I think just try and have the same mindset. I know it's easier said than done, but that is what run chases are all about. You got to be absolutely positive irrespective of what the totals are.
India, of course, like chasing, but from England's point of view, they've been very clear about using the shorter bowling in the T20s. More of the same here?
Well, they got to believe that they can defend this total. So that's something which is very important for England bowlers to have that kind of body language also on the field, that kind of intensity. That's the best they can do right now, going to defend this total, and the wickets are going to help. Generally, you've seen from Indian side that in ODIs they always do that cautious start. They are never rushed. Yes, they will definitely look to punish the loose balls, but the start will be a steady, slow start. Is what I feel. So far from the wicket, it's just not looked. Yes, there is a bit of turn, but it's not looked threatening enough for the Indian batting lineup. But there is certainly not enough for the seam bowlers. So that's good news for Indian team, and a very, very tough news for if you're an England supporter, because I think
not for
this,
the first time in recent memory.
Yeah, so I think this score is well below par. I think 300 is something which you are expecting least on this kind of track, and England is well short of that. So even if India lose early wicket, I think they'll have enough time to come back in the game. It's just a matter of 2 to 3 good partnerships, and they'll be home.
But belief has to be the key factor for England.
Also, they'll be looking at it, and probably if you were in the dressing room and I had to tell them, you'd probably say that India's got a fairly long tail. 8, 9, 10, 11. Umesh bats at 8. If you look at it that way, and they'll say that
First class 100.
he's got but Umesh's first class 100 is a bit like Ajit Agarkar. He's like the Ajit Agarkar Sachin Tendulkar story, where Ajit has a test 100 at Lords. That's the, but that's what they'd be saying, that if you can get past the first 4 and maybe get there, it's a slightly long tail, maybe you take early wickets, you've got to tell yourself something.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a look at that, as you said, on paper, certainly you know that it's not quite someone like a
Yeah, I mean, Mark Wood,
David Willey
yeah,
coming in
yeah,
that low
exactly.
down the order. Hardik Pandya, of course, very much can bat. But after that, you know that if by any chance you've got that far down and you've got someone like Suresh Raina who's perhaps just trying to find his way into the team. So
I agree.
they will obviously be talking about all these
That's the
factors.
chink in the armor they'll be looking, and as an opposing side, that's what they'll look for.
Right, before we go to one more reiteration of the joy factor, a quick prediction. I'm not going to ask if, I'm only going to ask when. How quickly can India finish this? Or should I be saying if? Should I not jump the gun?
Look, I think 270 is not a bad total. There would still be positive thinking that they can defend this total. Otherwise, there's no point going and just bowling and just going through the motions as well. I still feel that the kind of batting order India's got, if England can take 2 or 3 early wickets, especially Virat Kohli, if they can get Virat Kohli early, there'll be a lot of doubts in the Indian batting lineup, because I don't see Suresh Raina, to be honest, be as fluent as he used to be, because he's making a comeback. Plus, I think when you've got Hardik Pandya, he can finish off the game really quickly, but he's not someone who's going to just hang in there and try and accumulate runs as well. So I think it's the top 3 or the top 4 who needs to do the job. Once if you get 2 or 3 early wickets, they'll be very much back into the game.
All right, different question for you. Who's your key performer going to be with the bat? I know you're very keen on Rohit Sharma doing well, and you saw what happened in the T20Is. You played him up.
I think Shikhar looks like he will get back in form because he's someone who has had a great run in English conditions. It's just matter of time that he gets that one inning and gets things moving for him.
Give me a batsman before the joy factor.
Virat Kohli, always useful. Why? Let me go for the greatest chaser in the history of ODI cricket, which he is at this point in time. So if I have to bet on someone, I might as well bet on him. And he hasn't got too much so far. So he's due for another big one.
All right, so without giving any more hints, because I think you gave a few too many earlier, just give us the joy factor again.
Okay, here goes. This time straight up, no hints. Very select group of 12 people in one-day internationals. The last to join was less than a month back. First player became a part of this list in 1983, but his feat is not as impressive in inverted commas as the rest. 2 Indians are a part of this group currently. What are we talking about here? What very exclusive group are we talking about here?
Yes, and of course, give us the answers with hashtag Cricbuzz Live. We have had, I believe, a few answers already coming in. We haven't checked them to see if they're correct or not. We will give you all the answers at the end of the show when we wrap up what we hope will be a successful Indian run chase. How soon? We're not sure. Who's going to perform? We're not sure. We've had our experts have their views. Thank you very much, Joy, Zaheer and Gautam Gambhir. We'll see you again at the end of the game on Cricbuzz Live.